Hello and welcome. You're watching News Central Television. I am Judith TV. Here are the stories making headlines beyond the continent. And we begin the news in Europe, where Russia on Wednesday confirms it had detained a man from Uzbekistan over the killing of a senior Russian general and his assistant in Moscow a day earlier. Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, who headed Russia's radiological, biological, and chemical protection forces, was killed by a remotely detonated bomb planted in an electric scooter outside his apartment building. The blast came a day after Ukrainian prosecutors indicted Kirillov in absentia for Russia's use of banned chemical weapons during its invasion of Ukraine. According to a source with knowledge of the operation, later told media, that Ukraine's security service, the SBU, was behind the attack. Meanwhile, the United States has denied any involvement in the killing of senior Russian military officer Igor Kirillov, while confirming or condemning his alleged atrocities. Now, Kirillov, head of Russia's chemical, biological, and biological as well as radiological weapons unit, was killed alongside an assistant when an explosive device attached to a scooter detonated outside a residential building in southeastern Moscow. The attack occurred just a day after President Vladimir Putin lauded Russian military gains in Ukraine, nearly 3 years into the Kremlin's invasion of its pro-Western neighbor. Kirillov had recently been sanctioned by Britain over accusations of chemical weapons used in Ukraine, intensifying global scrutiny of Russia's military operations. And off to the UK, where UK annual inflation climbed further above the Bank of America's, I take that again, apologies, the Bank of England's target rate in November. Official data showed firming expectations that it will avoid cutting interest rates this week. Inflation had always been expected to tick up again in the back end of 2024 after falling over the summer, with energy bills rising in winter time. For News Central, international correspondent Afia Hagen has more.
The UK inflation rate has gone up for the second month in a row, with prices rising at their fastest pace since March. Inflation hit 2.6% in the year to November, according to official figures. Fuel and clothing were amongst the main drivers behind the rise. Increasing ticket prices for gigs and plays were also a factor. Analysts say the latest figures mean the Bank of England will almost certainly not cut interest rates when it meets on Thursday. Inflation had been falling steadily over the past 2 years and undershot the Bank of England's 2% target in September before rising again in October. Chancellor Rachel Reeves says she recognised that families were struggling with the cost of living. The official forecasting body said in October that inflation was likely to pick up to 2.6% in 2025, in part due to the impact of budget measures announced in October. Capital Economics predicts inflation will dip in December and then rise again in January, but by the end of next year would have fallen back to close to the Bank of England's 2% target. Prices for food and non-alcoholic drinks, alcohol and tobacco, and footwear all rose at a faster pace last month. A wider measure of inflation showed housing and household services costs, including rent, rose by 3.5% over the past year. UK inflation had soared to above 11% in October 2022, the highest level in more than 4 decades, as the Russia-Ukraine war cut energy and food supplies, sending prices soaring. Companies faced supply constraints also, as they struggled to return to the pre-COVID rhythm of working. However, as inflation began to come down, central banks started to cut interest rates, helping to ease a cost of living crisis. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
Let's also tell you that a court in the United Kingdom ruled Wednesday that police could seize the equivalent of £3.3 million in frozen financial assets from misogynist social media influencer Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan to cover years of unpaid taxes. The money has been held in 7 bank accounts frozen by British authorities belonging to Tate, who previously lived in the UK, his brother Tristan, and a woman identified by the British authorities only as Jay. Chief Magistrate Paul Goldspring at the Westminster's Magistrates Court said in his Wednesday ruling that transactions made by the brothers, including transfers amounting to almost £12 million to Jay, had been a straightforward cheat to evade tax authorities. Georgian President Salome Zourabichvili has criticized Europe for being slow to wake up and slow to react to the political crisis in a country where authorities have been cracking down on pro-EU demonstrations after a government decision to halt its push to join the bloc. While speaking in front of MEPs in Strasbourg, the president added that Europe so far has not fully lived to the moment.
Where Georgians have been fighting day and night, Europe has been slow to wake up and slow to react. While European flags are being banned in Tbilisi, Georgians are still waiting for biting measures to come from Brussels and Washington. And I hope we won't have to wait for a deeper crisis to occur for Europe to act changed. And if Georgia falls under Russian control, and again, I am not talking about a military intervention, I'm talking about this electoral and constitutional intervention. The stakes are very high. That concerns Black Sea security. That concerns everything linked to connectivity to Central and Southern Asia. It concerns Armenia's European future. So it's much more than just Georgia and just Georgia's democracy or just Georgia's political choices.
And you're welcome back. Let's continue in Europe as Croatian opposition presidential candidate Dragan Primorac held a campaign rally in the capital Zagreb ahead of the elections scheduled for 29th December. Primorac, backed by the ruling conservative Croatian Democratic Union Party, pledged to strengthen border security against illegal migration. He also criticized the incumbent president, who is seeking a second term. Primorac's campaign centers on restoring civility and moderation in Croatian politics.
Imamo predsjednika kojemu ništa nije sveto. Nije mu sveta domovina, nije mu sveti rad, budi se u 11:30 sati, ne poštuje hrvatske blagdane, svadljiv je i ne zna da voljeti domovinu može čovjek koji je čista duše, čistih ruku i čistog obraza, a on to nema i zato mora otići, dragi moji prijatelji. Želim zahvaliti premijeru koji je došao do toga da će u 25. godini onaj standard NATO-a o izdvajanju 2% iz BDP-a biti ispoštivan i što nam daje jamstvo i sigurnost da će hrvatske oružane snage biti na razini najboljih. Ali po Zoranu Milanoviću mi bi bili 40 godina iza. Kad kažem branit ću granicu po svaku cijenu, onda želim vidjeti sigurnost naše domovine. Ona nam je svetinja. I ilegalni migranti, oni neće biti dobrodošli u Republiku Hrvatsku i to je još jedna stvar što stoji u mom programu, dragi moji prijatelji.
Pa naravno da očekujemo promjene jer mislim da trenutno i nije baš naš predsjednik sadašnji na nivou koji bi predsjednik trebao biti.
Prije svega očekujem promjenu. Nisam zadovoljna kako nas aktualni predsjednik prezentira što u Hrvatskoj, što u svijetu. i svakako mislim da će kandidat Dragan Primorac, kojega sam i večeras došla podržati, transparentno i puno bolje prikazivati i nas Hrvate doma, u našoj domovini i vani.
Očekujem, u svakom slučaju očekujem pobjedu, a ukoliko neće biti pobjeda, opet idemo dalje, nema problema.
And for more on this, we move on to our next story for now. From Croatia, we move now to Syria, where Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, says he will remain on the strategic Mount Hermon site on the Syrian border until another arrangement is found. Recall that Israeli troops occupied Mount Hermon when they moved into demilitarized zone between Syria and Israeli-occupied Gazan heights following the collapse of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government this month. Officials have described the move as a limited and temporary measure to ensure the security of Israel's borders, but have given no indication of when the troops might be withdrawn. However, Defense Minister Israel Katz last week ordered troops to prepare to remain on Mount Hermon over the winter. And we move now away from that, still on the war in Gaza. Now to the Middle East, where we understand that human rights group Amnesty International has concluded that Israel's war on Gaza meets the legal threshold for genocide in a damning new report. The report, published on Thursday, titled "You Feel Like You Are Subhuman," highlights Israel's genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. The combination of months of research by Amnesty, including extensive witness interviews, analysis of visual and digital evidence, including satellite imagery, and statements made by senior Israeli government and military officials. According to Amnesty, Israeli military has committed at least 3 of the 5 acts banned by the 1948 Genocide Convention, including incriminate killings of civilians causing serious bodily or mental harm, and deliberately inflicting on Palestinians in Gaza conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction. And you're welcome back. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's wife, and that's Bangona Gomez, has denied wrongdoing in court testimony Wednesday to an investigation into alleged corruption, one of several legal cases connected to the minority left-wing government. Her appearance at a Madrid court comes during a frenzied week of legal activity in cases involving Sanchez's inner circle. These cases are still all at the investigative stage, as no one has been put on trial yet or even charged in these affairs.
Mi cliente ha explicado que nunca conoció la existencia de esos procesos de licitación pública, que nadie le pidió ninguna intervención, que por supuesto no intervino en absoluto y es más, no llegó a tener conocimiento de que habían sido adjudicados hasta que se incoa este procedimiento. También ha explicado que el sueldo que recibía por los 2 máster anualmente eran 15.000 euros. Creo que la cantidad pone de manifiesto que no pretendía lucrarse con lo que estaba haciendo. Finalmente...
Y es lo siguiente, ha dicho que solo ha respondido a las preguntas de su abogado. Si de verdad no hubiera nada, hubiera respondido a preguntas también de la acusación y por lo menos a las preguntas del juez o del fiscal, a pesar de que el fiscal es el fiscal de la defensa, porque actúa siempre en la misma línea que el abogado de Begoña, sin embargo solamente ha respondido a sus preguntas. Las respuestas además, o las preguntas, han sido, sinceramente, no han entrado en el fondo de la cuestión.
And back to the Middle East, as the United Nations Special Envoy to Syria, Geir Pedersen, called for free and fair elections in Syria on Wednesday, emphasizing the need for continued humanitarian aid to the war-torn country. Speaking to reporters in Damascus, Pedersen expressed cautious optimism, stating that while there is a lot of hope now for the beginning of a new Syria, there is still the importance of finding a political solution for the Kurdish-held northeast, signaling the potential for reconciliation and stability. Tennessee's remarks come after the recent ouster of Syrian President Bashir al-Assad, a development that has raised hopes for political change in the region.
Hope that we can now see the beginning of a new Syria. A new Syria that, in line with Security Council Resolution 2254, will adopt a new constitution that will ensure that it is a social contract, a new social contract for all Syrians, and that we will have free and fair elections when that time comes, after a transitional period, and also in line with Security Council Resolution 2254. One of the biggest challenges is the situation in the northeast. I'm very pleased that the truce have been renewed and that it seems to be holding, but hopefully we will see a political solution to that issue.
Israeli ambassador to UN, Danny Donan, says that Israel aims to reach an agreement with Palestinian militant organization Hamas in the next days to implement a ceasefire and release captives detained in Gaza. Speaking to reporters at the UN headquarters in New York, Donan stated that notwithstanding numerous Hamas's rejections, they anticipate some news before the holidays of Hanukkah and Christmas.
As we speak, negotiations on a hostage deal are ongoing. We hope we can achieve a deal. You know, after many rejections by Hamas, we hope we're going to have some news before the holiday of Hanukkah and Christmas. Unfortunately, because of the experience we have with Hamas, I cannot be confident. Because in the past we had negotiations, we thought we have agreements, and they came up with new demands, with new names of prisoners that they want to release. So, you know, at the end. And I think also not only the UN, but the international community should thank Israel for what we did in Syria. We neutralized the weapons of mass destruction that nobody wants them to be in the hands of terror groups.
Meanwhile, let's move on now to Italy. Well, alpine rescuers in northern Italy have rescued an injured cave explorer 75 hours after she fell while attempting to map an unexplored branch of the Borno Fantino cave. The last leg of the rescue operation proceeded more smoothly than expected, and workers carrying 32-year-old Ottavia Piana strapped in a stretcher reached the cave's mouth in the early morning hours. It was the second time in 17 months to be rescued from the cave near Lago de Alos, northeast of Bagoma. Now, Piana suffered multiple fractures, including to her face, ribs, and knee, when she fell 15 meters while exploring an uncharted part of the cave on Saturday. The Borno Fantino cave is located some 500 meters below ground, with the mapped area reaching some 19 kilometers. Passion sometimes can be a hell of a drug. We move now to South America, where Ecuador's government has announced it has converted part of its 1.5 billion pounds of external debt into protection for the Amazon rainforest, the second so-called debt for nature swap in the South American country. Economy Minister Juan Carlos Vargas said that the government had renegotiated the debt to secure a new $1 billion loan with better payment conditions at a gathering in the capital, Quito, where President Daniel Noboa was present. Vargas stated that the operation produced approximately $460 million in savings, all of which were allocated only to the Amazon's conservation. Debt for nature swaps are an increasingly popular tool to help developing countries refinance and raise money for environmental or climate causes.
Este viejo corredor amazónico, una conversión de deuda por naturaleza, destinará más de 400 millones de dólares a la protección de la Amazonía, el corazón de la biodiversidad de nuestro planeta y el alma de nuestra nación. Hemos logrado intercambiar 1.527 millones de bonos globales, es decir, de deuda por un nuevo préstamo de impacto de 1.000 millones con mejores condiciones. Queremos realmente.
And that's all on Beyond the Continent. And now remember that you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422 or on Star Times channel 274. You can find us on Avo TV, or better yet, stream us live on YouTube. That's all from Beyond the Continent. It's back to the continent. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV. Bye for now.